Hi, my name is Duke Borgerding. This is my wife, Sarah. We have been members of Lake Nokomis for 8 years approximately. Um, we have four young children that many people in the congregation know, as they have a lot of adopted grandparents among the group. We are flattered to have been asked to speak on love this week as part of our Lenten worship. And so, with that, we will kick it off.
Mm-hmm.
So, one of the first questions that was presented to us was uh, God's love, love thy neighbor. How have we experienced God's love?
One thing that Duke and I talk a lot about is the concept that we've felt firsthand that things happen for a reason. We know that we've been very blessed in our life, which is not to say that things have always been easy. They've certainly not always been easy, but we've been struck by how often the right solution falls into place at a better timing than we could have imagined, um, and often the solution is better than we could have created ourselves. In hindsight, we can usually see God's hand in God's plan playing out.
Yeah, and I think when I think about God's love, I think about the experiences that I've had with the youth of our church, going on mission trips, whether it be out to Colorado or to Kentucky. It was seeing the way that the youth of our church engage with each other and engage with others while we're in community that is not our own has been um, extremely fulfilling. Like just being able to see the way that they come together as a group and ultimately to do God's work on those mission trips. So it's been a very humbling experience to be part of that.
And for me, that's part of God's love too. That love that humans show to one another to support one another is an extension of the love that God has for us.
Absolutely. So the next question we were asked to touch on was what was our first experience with human love?
So for me, the biggest piece is that sense of belonging and safety, that sense of security. I have really fond memories of holidays with my large extended family, where the house is full of people and everybody uh, knows and supports one another. Particularly if you don't see each other very often, it's even more telling to have that sense of support in a house full of people. I also felt that in my childhood church. It was very similar to Lake Nokomis Lutheran, where there was a lot of kids, but also a lot of surrogate grandparents. And when my brothers and I were in the building, we didn't necessarily have to check in with my mom and dad and tell them exactly where we were going. And my parents were comfortable with that because they knew that the building was full of people that knew us and loved us as much as my parents did, and that they would hear if we needed help, or if we were fine, they would find out where we were because everybody was in it together and everybody knew.
Yeah, and I experienced that as well. I grew up in a small rural community, and the Catholic Church in that area was kind of the church for everyone. And not only was it other members of the church, but it was my extended family went to the same church. So there was always people that knew us, knew me personally, uh, at all over my life. So it was always for me just having kind of that presence was always a very very strong feeling. But the one thing I did want to talk about was more about um, how I think about the love that we have for each other. And when we met in high school all those years ago, I think neither of us really knew what we were getting into. But I think the biggest part was is that it was comfortable. It didn't feel like we had to prove ourselves to each other. It was always something that it was easy to be together, and was our relationship just continued to build from there. And that was 25 years ago, 26 years ago. So something's working. So um,
So how do you seek to share that love with our family?
For me, I think it was really when our first was born, when Duke was born. It was a whole different sense of love. Like Sarah and I had traveled the world, traveled the country, had moved to different areas, had been through a lot together, positives and negatives. And I think we've always had each other as a rock, to fall back on. But I think when we started having children and having them in our lives, it's a completely different type of love, and it's unconditional. And I think for us it was, now we're living and we're going through all of this for more than just the two of us. It was all of us now. And every time that we every time we had another kid, it was always the same. It didn't feel any different for Grace than it did with Duke. I always feel like this just uncontrollable love for them the moment that I see them. So
There are some specific things that we do as parents to try to instill that sense with our kids. We talk about the family and family unit. We use the term team. We're a team. We're in this together. And one way that plays out is that if one of the kiddos is hurt, those that are around them are encouraged to give them a hug. And not because they may have caused the hurt, the emotional or physical hurt, but we tell them, you have the power to help him feel better. We're in this together. And if you saw them fall, if you saw them drop something, you have the power to help. So we really try to instill that sense of teamwork within the family. But because we have a big family, we also work hard to instill that sense of being special with each of the kids individually. Each of the kids has their own cadre of nicknames. We have distinct ways that we say, I love you, to each of the kids. And we're really careful not to use that key phrase with any of the other kids, so that they do still have those things that are their own. We try to think about or pay attention to the food that we're serving, in that, if Paige doesn't like pizza and we have pizza one night, then we'll try to find something that she definitely likes to eat dinner the next night, so that each of their needs are being met as we navigate all of their 4 needs and our needs too.
yeah, and I think part of that is also rotating through days for the kids, and every day, or every day of the week, every day of the month is one of their days, and we rotate through, and during that day they get to pick what's the show that we watch after school. We try to tailor meals around them whenever we can, but also as part of that is just making sure that we're talking to each of them individually, and speaking to them on a level that they can understand. So making sure that we're being vocal with them about how much time is left on the show before dinner or something like that, rather than just demanding that they shut down the TV. And I think that helps them feel like they're a bigger piece of the family than.
Well, that makes it a little more predictable, which feeds into that sense of safety and security.
Yeah. So what kinds of successes have we seen, and failures for that matter?
Well, we've shared a few examples. Parenting is forever a journey, and it's constant learning and constant recalibrating to their needs as they grow and evolve.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing for me, and failure is such a harsh word, I don't typically like to use it, but I think where there's opportunities are when we realize that, after the fact, that something could have been handled differently. And I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm perfect by any means in terms of how I manage our children, but there are times where we have problems listening or motivating to go to school in the morning or things like that. And I think those are times when I look at it and try to figure out where was there an opportunity for me to handle that better, that would have been a little bit more loving and supportive of the child at that time. So I think those are kind of ongoing things that we are always trying to tackle.
So the last question that Erica shared with us in preparing for this was, what are new things you have learned about love, both God's love and human love, since becoming parents. And it's interesting to me that she asked this, because this is something that I think about a lot. I have an entirely new respect for the love of God since becoming a parent. That unconditional love, the sense of putting someone else's needs before your own. There's that is so powerful, and that parental love. I understand firsthand now why love in the Bible is often formed that way. Why the term father is such a poignant and powerful term for God. I get it in a new way since being a parent.
Yeah, and I think, just seeing the way that the kids look up to us and they feed off of us, and they're looking for cues on how to react in certain situations, or how to act in church, what are the things that they should be thinking about. And we try to go through ups and downs on an ongoing basis. I won't say that we do it daily, but I think we do a good job of trying to again meet them at their level, and figure out how can we engage with them better. But again, I think it just the things that we hear from them just goes to show how deep that love can go.
And their forgiveness of us when we do have a time that doesn't go as smoothly. Their forgiveness of us is a powerful reminder for me too.
Yeah.
Of just how deep love can go.
Yeah. As much as we make them hug each other and apologize, I think it goes the same for us sometimes. So a hug and a I'm sorry goes a long way.
It's true.
Love you, babes.
Love you.
Thanks, everyone.